Almost everyone has heard of the placebo effect, but most people haven't heard about the nocebo effect. And if you've not heard about the nocebo effect, then you're more likely to suffer from a bad internet connection.
Scare ya? Think you were suffering from a broken internet connection just because we said it?
Let's talk about the nocebo effect and the placebo effect and how they fit in with everyday life and act upon you hypnotically.
Now let's start with placebo. When we believe something is beneficial, it actually affects our brains and our bodies. There's the sugar pill example. When I started performing in 1975, I was terrified of going on stage. My doctor gave me a tranquilizer to take an hour before I went on stage. And one night, I couldn't find the pills. I had left them in Toronto when I was in another city. I was panicking. I went through my luggage 1,000 times. You know, when you look in the same place, even though it's not there, maybe if I look again, it'll appear. They weren't there. The tranquilizers were not there. And I found out when I went on stage, I don't feel any different or any worse than when I was taking those things. My doctor told me he'd give me a placebo. There was no ingredient in the pill but sugar.
Okay, so a placebo effect is when you believe that something you're being given or being done to you is going to have a positive effect, even though it is innocuous. It's a sugar pill. It's not doing anything for you, right? And this actually exists. The placebo effect exists in the pharmaceutical industry, in pretty much every area of life, but let's specifically talk about pharmaceuticals for a moment. So you could have a pill, like a legit pill, like say an Advil or Tylenol or any kind of drug, and the size or the color of the pill or
how many are in the bottle, how many you're supposed to take,
the packaging, the wording,
the name of it, Xanpinagon.
All of these things can have an effect that will take a drug, in this case, that would normally have an effect and make the effect stronger. So that's your placebo effect from pharmaceutical land, right?
Dr. Richard Mandel used to joke about this and say he wanted to put out new extra strength placebo with twice as much inactive ingredient.
That's a good one. I love that. So knowing this, knowing the placebo effect exists is a powerful thing to know. You want to support yourself with positive affirmations or people, especially authority figures, who are giving you positive affirmations. And doctors really need to realize the power of this, right? Because
your words are medicine. So make sure you're prescribing the right words.
Okay, so what about nocebo? We said it's the opposite. It's an unnecessary negative effect that arises from a belief or a suggestion.
Right, so if you get a vaccine, the doctor might tell you to expect some side effects like a fever or a sore arm. Now, depending on how this message is delivered to you, it could actually have a negative effect on you.
For sure. So if the doctor was to say to you, for example, oh, most people, just as a heads up, most people who get this vaccine, they're going to have a really sore arm for a couple of days and you'll probably get a fever. Well, guess what? You're going to get a fever more likely because of the way that that message was delivered. Whereas if the doctor, what would be like a better way to do it?
Well, if the doctor said something like, you may find a little soreness in the area, but most people have no bad effects at all.
And I know you'll be totally fine.
There you go.
You can do a hypnotic embedded command or something.
And he's giving you a placebo effect instead of a nocebo effect.
Right. In fact, there's a recent example that I heard about this. I was listening to a podcast where a psychologist was being interviewed by a medical doctor. And she had talked about how she got infected with a common virus, a virus that's going around the world right now. And she'd been sick for 10 days. Now, because she was sick, and apparently this virus isn't supposed to make you that sick, she called another doctor friend of hers and said, oh, what's going on here? I've been sick for 10 days. That doctor said something to the effect of, oh, 10 days? That's usually when your blood oxygen saturation drops and you need to go to the hospital. Whoa! So, and of course, the MD that was interviewing here on the podcast, he just called it out. Nocebo effect, yes. So she ended up muting this other doctor's text messages. Even though he's a friend, he was using the nocebo effect
by
accidentally against her. And that was not a good thing. So it's all in the wording, the tone, or the overall delivery that can have
like if the doctor
effect.
says to you, oh, this won't be too bad. And if he says, this won't be too bad, even that can give you a nocebo effect because the implication in the tone is that something's going to go wrong.
Yeah, and like I said, with this particular psychologist being interviewed by an MD, thankfully she knew about the nocebo effect and she was able to avoid the negative effects as a result of this. So there's another area of nocebo that's actually common in cultures around the world, right? So we've got things like What do we want to talk about here?
Bone pointing
And
voodoo
voodoo,
dolls.
right.
Yeah. The Corsini Encyclopedia of Psychology and Behavioral Science says that bone pointing, if someone has committed a serious crime, they get the entire tribe in a circle. The medicine man, witch doctor, whatever, gets a bone, goes around the circle,
Like
chanting.
this. Bone.
And points it. And when you're the guilty person, it's pointed at you. People have actually died from this. This is
so
in an
crazy.
encyclopedia. And again, we're getting an overwhelming nocebo effect that's having a horrendous effect on your neurology, your psychology, and your physical body.
That's crazy to think that the nocebo effect can actually result in death. But larger picture here is that you're triggering cortisol. When you cause fear in someone else, you're going to trigger a cortisol response, which can suppress the immune system, maybe slow down healing, or in the case of this bone pointing guy, actually cause death, which is really quite crazy.
Right. So you definitely want to avoid this sort of thing if you're a doctor. Now, we don't think a doctor is going to point a bone at someone or do a voodoo doll. But if you're a doctor, recognize because you're delivering words from a position of authority, your words will have a definite effect on this person. Make sure you are prescribing the right words so your patients get well instead of getting sicker.
And if you're a hypnotist, this is something that really should resonate because obviously you're an authority figure to your clients and you need to make sure that you're mindful of how you're using your words. Anything else?
Right, and that's why whenever we teach hypnotherapists around the world, we teach them to always end the session with ego strengthening and supportive statements that are going to go into the unconscious and help the person become more well instead of getting sicker.
Excellent, absolutely. So if you're interested in learning more about all of this stuff and perhaps even studying with us to become an awesome hypnotist, check out the link in the description under this video. You'll see that you can join the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. Everyone's welcome to start with a 14-day free trial. So we hope you enjoy it. So we'll see you in the next video. Make sure that while you're here, you click that subscribe button and then
ring that bell. I'm Mike Mandel. This is Chris Thompson. Thanks again and
good night.
Good night.